Good morning, Zimbabwe, and welcome to this live special ZBC News and Current Affairs broadcast of the nomination court for the 2023 period. And my name is Farai Gwaza, and I'm also joined by Lucy Ngosolo in a studio. Now, on the 31st of May 2023, His Excellency the President, Comrade Emmerson Mnangagwa, proclaimed the 23rd of August as the day Zimbabwe will hold the general elections. Now, as contemplated by the Constitution, he also set the 2nd of October 2023 as the day for the election runoff, should there be no outright winner in the presidential election.
Mpuli ya Zimbabwe nkomotambula nkutuli kuchitamule chino chindi egatulo kuno kuma studios Pockets Hill agatuli kumuyetela zionse izilangilidwe ikuti zinochitwa suno awo gatulangidwe ikuti bonse ibayanda kujizga mukati igasaluzgo izya 23 August vali kutola imagwalo abo okunkuta izgamilawo muri ya Zimbabwe zose zvinenge zvichiitika apo pari kuiswa mapepa avo vari kutarisira kunge vachipinda musarudzo dza 23 August nasi tiri kutarisira kukunzira zvose zvinenge zvichiitika pazvinenge zvichiitika ipapo munyika mose apo kuri kugarwa pasi kutariswa kuti magwaro avo akafanira here kana kuti haana kufanira. Muli yeZimbabwe siqhubekela ke phambili silethulela konke okuzabe kusenzakala namhlanje sikhangelele njalo ukuthi siza kuya ngakhona ngale ngasema studios ethu eMontrose lapho sizaliphathela njalo okunye okuzabe kusenzakala endaweni ke ezitshiyeneyo ukuze ke siqhubekele ke phambili silethulela lani lisemakhaya libe kwazi ukuthi ukuhamba kanjani iwini okuthatha indawo isikhathi sonke kuze kufike ke emaphethelweni. Farai.
Thank you so much for that there, Lucy. Now, of course, the head of state and government have made the proclamation in the statutory instrument contained in the Government Gazette, published in terms of both Constitution and the Electoral Act. Now, in the Government Gazette, the President also set aside the 21st of June 2023 as the date for the nomination court, which will be held countrywide to accept applications by political parties and their candidates to take part in the 2023 polls. Now, the applications will be for presidential, National Assembly, Senate, women's quota and local authority candidates. At this time, aspiring candidates across the country's political divide who also wish to stand for the 2023 general elections have started submitting their nomination papers at the courts, which opened at 8 a.m. this morning.
Izvo muri yeZimbabwe sezvo tanzwa Farai achitaura vari kutura magwaro avo tiri kutarisira avo vari kuda kuzokwikwidza pachinzvimbo chemutungamiri wenyika vachamirira National Assembly, Senate, vachamirira zvakare women's quota pamwe chete nemakanzuro. Ndizvo zvinenge zvichiitika kuchitariswa magwaro avo kuti akamira sei. Tiri kuona kuti kwavhurwa nenguva dza8 mangwanani tatoona kare panguva dzaitwa Good Morning Zimbabwe. Farai, pane zvanga zvatoitika nechekare zvakare tiri kuenderera mberi siqhubekela ke phambili ilizwe lonke jikelele amaprovince onke elichumi intatheli izindaba zeZBC zikhona khona ngale babe siphathela ke konke okuzabe kusenzakala.
Most definitely 10 provinces nationwide would be engaging in this nomination process. Now, before we get our first update, let's take a listen to the views from the streets upon this year's election process.
Elections. Saka inini ndiri kutofarirawo ma-elections wayo segore rangu rekutanga wokuvhota, so saka ndongokurudzira vechidiki vese mayuthi ese chaiwa ngatibudei takawanda tindonovhota.
Ma-elections ariko muna August, saka tiri kukurudzira vanhu vese kuti tiende tinovhota neuhwando hwedu tichivhotera mapato atinoda. Tichivhotera ma-president, ma-MP, ma-senator nema-councillor zvese.
Handei hama ngatiendei
neuhwando
wedu tinovhota.
Tinenge tichivhotera president wedu nema-councillor wedu nema-MP edu musi wa23 August.
Tinokurudzira kuti tiende tinovhota tese neuhwando hwedu. Tinovhotera president, tovhotera ma-MPs edu, ma-senators, ma-PR representatives, ma-youth quotas, ma-women quotas, ma-councillors, especially vechiduku. Tinokurudzira kuti muende tinodini tinovhota tese kuti nyika yedu ienderere mberi.
Saka tinongoshuvirawo kuti vanhu ngavangorambe vaine runyararo irworwo kusvika tizovhota musi wa23 August. Tivhote murunyararo tizogamuchira zvinenge zvabuda musarudzo.
I'm encouraging all youths around Zimbabwe to turn up for the elections that are being held on the 23rd of August. I'm encouraging all the youths to come and vote for the MPs, the councillors, and for the presidential spot.
Nguva yedu yakwana yekuti tiende kundovhota musi wa 23 August. Tinofanira kuti tiende tinovhota kuti zvakanaka zvive matiri.
Patiri kunovhota musi wa 23 kuvhotera president waunoda, MP waunoda, councillor waunoda, senator waunoda. Izvi zvatiri kuvhotera kazhinji zhinji kugadzirisa upenyu hwamangwana kuti hubude hwakanaka uye tirarame tisina zvinhu zvinotinetsa. So tikange tasarudza mutungamiri watinoda, ayo zvinokurudzirwa kuti tizviite. Saka munhu wese iwe gadzirira unovhota, kana usina kuregister watirasa. Dai muri mumweka waregister, wakagara waregister kudhara, taenda newe kwatiri kuenda nekuti isu vamwe takatoregister takatogadzira kutovhota kana nhasi tinonovhota kana zvichiita.
Isusu patiri kuenda kunovhota toda kuti MP watinenge tasarudza ngatigadzirirewo nzira, kozi marodzi chaiyo iyo kumalokesheni hakuna rodhi inofambika, hakuna mvura, mabhoho ngavatiisirewo mabhoho nemasuweji omirawo nesu nevanhu vecity council, kozi masuweji haakudhabhukira mudzimba. At the end vana vanenge vakurwara nekuda kwemasuweji. Saka ma-MP atiri kunovhotera iko zvino izvi tokumbirawo mutigadzirisewo zvinhu izvozvo kuti tiwake ukama pamwe chete.
Of course, those are contributions coming in from the general populace, highlighting how they too have played a part and also are looking forward to the presidential election currently underway. And of course, the nomination court setting the pace going forward. Various stages haven't been met by the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission to be able to ensure that we do have the electoral process taking place, but to be able to share with us the journey that has been taken to be able to meet the electoral requirements. I'm currently joined by the director of ZBC News and Current Affairs, Mr. Albert Chikai, to be able to give us an appreciation of the journey to the 2023 harmonized elections. Mr. Chikai, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome, Farai.
Yes.
It's a great day indeed.
Yes. The journey to be able to get to the 2023 harmonized elections. If you could shed a bit more light on how we've come this far.
Thank you very much. So this journey does not start today.
Right.
It has not started even on the 31st of May, but this journey started some years back, decades back. So I would say the elections for Zimbabwe have a rich history of democracy, but this rich history of democracy did not just fall from heaven, neither was it delivered on a silver platter.
Right.
It was fought for the liberation struggle. You go back to as far as 1948, when the late Benjamin Burombo organized the strikes, the general strike of 1948, demanding respect for the black person. Later on, you get into the 50s, the 60s, the formations of the National Democratic Party. You go to ZAPU, you go to ZANU, till the liberation struggle. You know, it started on the 20th of April, 1966, with the Chinhoyi battle. After that, the decisive one in the 1970s, the early 70s. Until we got to a stage whereby the Rhodesian regime accepted to go for a settlement. We went to Lancaster House in 1979. That conference was held between September and December. Imagine those months, September to December 1979. They were discussing till we came up with a constitution, which was a compromised constitution.
Right.
Before that, the black person was not allowed to vote. He had to qualify through some mechanism that had been set by the Rhodesian regime for you to qualify. And how many people could do that? Just a handful who could vote. So the nationalists, the cadres, the guerrillas who went to fight, the Zebra Zamla, they were fighting for what they were calling one man, one vote. I'll just alter it to say one man, one woman, one vote for gender inclusivity. But that was the thing. You had to vote for the leader you want. We were not allowed to do that.
Right.
So after the Lancaster House conference that ended in December, we had this compromised constitution called the Lancaster House. It set up a date for the elections. The first general elections or the first democratic elections ever held in this country were held on the 21st of February 1980. That's the beginning. That's where we say we started having elections after the war. So in that particular election, we had the main parties, PF ZAPU, that got 20 seats, ZANU-PF, that got 57 seats, and we had the UANC under the late Bishop Ebo Mzorewa getting 3 seats. And under that compromise constitution, we had 20 seats reserved for whites.
Yes.
It was part of the constitution.
Right.
You did not have to tamper with that particular constitution for 10 years. So 1980, the whites had their own voting system, their own registration, and they had 20 seats reserved for them. So out of the 100 seats, the black people had 80 seats, which they contested for, which I said ZANU-PF got 57, PF ZAP 20, and UNC 3 to make them 80. So that was the first general elections. And according to that constitution, elections were supposed to be held after every 5 years. In the next 5 years, we come to 1985. Indeed, we held elections. Again, ZANU-PF won. Second was PF ZAPU, and again the whites still had their 20 seats reserved for them. After 5 years, you come to 1990, and we held elections again. I say a rich history of democracy. We have never missed an election. So 1990, the new party, the new kid on the block was Zoom, the Zimbabwe Unity Movement, and the late national hero Edgar Tekere. Again, the elections were contested. But after 1990, you have to realize the 10 years had passed. The constitution that we had, the compromise constitution, it had passed. So there was an amendment. And at that particular time, we now had an executive president. Remember, in 1980, we had a ceremonial president, the late Reverend Kenan Banana, and then we had an executive prime minister. We did not vote for a prime minister, but once the party wins, it means the leader of that particular party would become the prime minister. So in 1990, we had our parliamentary elections, which were won by ZANU-PF again. But after that, we also had the presidential elections. So it was 2 weeks presidential elections, the following 2 weeks the parliamentary. So we had the 2 elections. Then the constitution had been amended to say now presidential term takes 6 years and parliamentary term it's 5 years. So the next parliamentary elections were in 1995. You remember the Forum Party, the Democratic Party, DP, Emmanuel Magoche, and so forth. Those were the major players there. We had an election. 1996, that's 6 years now, the presidential election. 2000, we had the parliamentary elections. The new party now was the MDC, the Movement for Democratic Change, which had been formed just a year later, which was on the 11th of September, 1999. The following year, we had an election, and the MDC contested, and ran ZANU-PF close. They just lost by a few seats. So we had those elections. But 2002, 6 years from 1996, presidential elections, those were held, and the major contenders were the late national hero, Comrade Robert Mugabe, versus the late Morgan Tsvangirai, and Comrade Robert Mugabe won by over 400 votes. I want to emphasize, we have never missed any election since 1980. So from 2002, we had the next parliamentary elections in 2005. From 2000, 5 years past 2005, we had an election parliamentary. That was in March. I want you to realize in 2005, we had another election that we had never held before, senatorial elections. That was in November 1995. For those who love history and political studies, you will realize that those were the elections that split the MDC for the first time, where Professor Walshman Ngube and others on the other side say we would participate. Morgan Tsvangirai and others said we will not participate, and there was a big fissure, and they split, and they participated and lost in the 2005 elections. But then after that, we went to 2008. That's a new phenomenon. We had to harmonize the elections now. That's the shortest parliament in the history of Zimbabwe, 2005 to 2008. Then we had to harmonize all the elections. That's presidential, parliamentary, and council elections. So we had the first harmonized elections in March 2008. And you remember what happened then. We did not have an outright winner. No. Again, that was a new development that we had never seen in this country. The winner did not manage the 50% plus one vote, which was a constitutional amendment before. And we went for a runoff that was held on the 27th of June 2008, which was won by the late President Robert Mugabe. And after that, the next election, now harmonized, was in 2013 and 2018. That's why at ZBC, we no longer say harmonized elections. It's the general elections according to the laws of the land. Harmonized, we harmonized in 2008. 13, we don't continue harmonizing. So thus far, we have come as a country, as a democracy. We fought for these elections. We fought for one man, one woman, one vote. We fought for it. It was not delivered unto us on a silver platter. We fought for it, and we have to preserve it. Now we come to this election in 2023, again on time, on the 31st of May, Wednesday, the president proclaimed 23rd of August as the election day.
Right. Now, also appreciating, Mr. Chikai, the progress that has been taken by Zimbabwe to get to the point where the general elections came from harmonized, spreading from there. We do find ourselves in this current electoral period where necessary processes have been taken to be able to meet this particular date. One key one that recently had come up was the issue of delimitation and the importance of being able to ensure that the voting electorate is adequately accounted for the electoral process. Your opinion on how we've come thus far with this particular preparation in this election?
Thank you, Farai. Let me explain a bit about delimitation. So in Zimbabwe, we have 210 constituencies. Now, the population would be expanding from the last election. People continue to be born. People continue to turn 18, register to vote. So the constituencies do not expand because the population has increased. But what happens is now, they could look at it to say so many people are concentrated in a particular area, but at another area there's fewer people. So they redraw their maps so that they balance these constituencies to have numbers that are almost even. And we did that, and it was done according to the laws, and it was done well. And we are at a stage where that process was finished on time. We were racing against the time because you had to do that within a certain time frames, and that was done.
800.
And where we are now is the election period. Let me explain the election season or the election period. This starts from the day of proclamation and ends on the day of the inauguration. So we say now the election season started on Wednesday, the 31st of May. It will run through this nomination process today. The nomination day, we have the polling day, 23 August, the counting of votes, the announcement of results, but it will end on the day of the inauguration of the winner. That's when we say the election season is over.
Right. Now, also appreciating that the mandate of the public broadcasters to be able to ensure that there's adequate coverage of the electoral process. Where do we stand in terms of being able to be well capacitated to meet that particular mandate currently?
A beautiful question. As a national broadcaster, we don't just do this for fun or enjoyment. It's according to the laws. We are expected to cover political parties who are contesting, candidates who are contesting. So as you remember, even on the proclamation day, we were right here in this studio with the breaking news, with an analysis on that, and we have started from the day of the proclamation. One program is already on air, which is the ballot, where the ZEC are there to explain the electoral processes. We inform the public, we inform Zimbabweans, the whole nation, what is happening, what is expected to happen, and their part, what they are supposed to do. And it's all explained. Besides that, we have other programs that will unveil to the political parties to come and sell their manifesto, to come and sell themselves, the candidates. That is free of charge. They don't pay for that. And we'll be running our news stories as usual on our ZBC TV, ZBC News 24, and our 6 radio stations. ZBC, we have 4 national radio stations, namely National FM Radio Zimbabwe, Power FM Classic 263, as well as our 2 local commercial radio stations, Kulomani FM in Bulawayo and Central Radio in Gweru. Our ZBC News Online will be updating the nation as we go.
That's it. Thank you so much, Mr. Jikai. And I know that we do have deployments in and around the currently at the moment. And now we'll be crossing over to Bruce Chawanda, who is currently in Harare at the Magistrates Court, to be able to give us an update on the nomination court process, which is underway today in and around the country. Bruce.
Good morning, Zimbabwe. We continue to give you live updates from Harare Magistrates Court, where we are set to see more than 30 prospective candidates for the National Assembly in Harare Province filing their nomination papers. And currently we have Comrade Tafaza Chidao, who has been duly nominated, representing Warren Park constituents, to give us insight into the process, just a few of the process, the nomination process that took place. Comrade, zvakamira sei?
Zvinhu zvanga zvakamira zvakanaka uye zvakarongeka. Kufaila nomination papers hakuna chiri kunetsa, hakuna dzimwe bureaucracy dzakawanda-wanda. Kana zvinhu zvako zvakarongeka zviri kungotambirwa zvakanaka. Zviri kuratidza kuti ZEC yakagadzirira zvachose kuti ihendle sarudzo dziri pamberi pedu nemazvo.
Imimi semunhu afaila mapapers ake akabudirira, mungati chii chamuchaita mangwana?
Mangwana taakutotsika ground zvine simba, taakuchitotanga kuendera mberi nebasa ratanga tichingoita seZANU-PF remobilization. Chinhu chikuru, kampeni yedu haisi kunyanyorema nekuti we are riding on the successes of the Second Republic. Mabasa makuru akaitwa na president wedu Mnangagwa, chapupu chakatotivhurira nzira nechekare, chinozongopamhidzirwa zvekare kuvandudzwa kwacho kana kuti udzamu hwacho nekuda kwekukundikana kwanga kuchita opposition muno muHarare. Izvozvo zvichaita kuti tidzorere nzvimbo dzese dzatatakatirwa kuopposition, tidzorere upenyu huri nani kuvagari vemuHarare, isu seZANU-PF.
Tinoona pasarudzo idzi vakuru vatungamiriri venyika vanga vachitaura nenyaya yerunyararo zvikuru. Chamungada kukurudzira vanhu veZimbabwe nevekuWarren Park ndechekuti
ini ndinotogara kutaura muconstituents mangu kuti hatidi kunzwa chinhu chinonzi violence. Hongu tiri vemapolitical parties akasiyana, asi tese tiri vana veZimbabwe. Pane panhamo pandakamboenda ndakati ukafa unochemwa neveZANU-PF, unochemwa neveCCC. Saka kusiyana kwemuonero mumaringe nezvematongerwo enyika hakufanire kuti tiite mhirizhonga. Tinongoda kuti maelections edu aitwe murunyararo, titolerate umwe neumwe. Kana achisapota zvatisingasapoti, ngatirege kumurova, ngatirege kumutuka kana kumuitira chimwe chinhu chakaipa. Tingoenda musarudzo mune runyararo.
Tinotenda vachidawo manzwa zvizere kubva kuna vachidawo vachitsanangurira zvavakatarisana nazvo kumberi kusvika zuva resarudzo. You have heard there from one of the duly nominated candidates who has successfully filed his papers for consideration. And I can as well confirm that the provincial elections officer indicated that when the time we started for the nomination court to sit, she announced the candidates who have filed their papers prior, and it emerged that one political party has already filed its papers for the province, and some are still inside filing their papers until 4 p.m. Back to your studio.
Thank you so much there, Bruce, for that update, and making sure that we do get more updates from you as the day progresses. Once again, we do implore you to be part of the conversation. Take advantage of our social media platforms at ZBC News Online to send us your questions, comments, and your contributions. I'm still joined by the Director of News and Current Affairs at ZBC, Mr. Albert Chikai. Now, criticism has come in light of representation of all political players during this particular period. Highlight to us the role of the public broadcaster in being able to meet that mandate of equitable representation during the electoral process.
Thank you, Farai, for that question. I think the criticism could have come from people who are not well conversant with the provisions of the law. The confusion emanates from the word equitable coverage. Yeah. It's not equal. And those who crafted the laws knew exactly what they were doing when they used the term equitable.
Right.
What equitable means is simple. Part A is 210 candidates and Part B is 30 candidates. Right. Part C is 3 candidates. Right. Those people are not supposed to get equal percentage or equal hours. Say you allocate 10 hours each. You are disadvantaging other parties. What will happen is the party with the 210 candidates gets a bigger percentage of the cake. Those with 30 also bigger than the 3. But the one with the 3 candidates cannot surely expect it to get the same number of hours with Part A, that is 210 candidates. Right. Now, with experience from the 2018 elections and even last year's by-elections, some parties actually snub when we say we have a schedule that we submit to ZEC to say on such a day we'll be having candidates ABC parties 1, 2, 3 to be coming to the studio or doing news stories. We submit that. But some parties, of course, disregard that, then later on go on to complain. But as ZBC, I can assure the nation, we are availing time. We'll be covering political parties. We'll be covering political candidates. And for you to remember, 2018, we had 23 presidential candidates. And all the 23 were allocated airtime on ZBC. And there is no reason why we should change that. We are doing that and even better refined. We have looked at our processes and we are refining them. Would be allocating times to political parties.
Right. You did highlight earlier on that as a ZBC News and Current Affairs, there would be adequate coverage of the electoral process. Another important stage is where the public gets to be able to understand the manifestos of various political parties. How important is it for the public broadcaster to ensure that that particular role is met for the public?
Yes, the public broadcaster, it's actually national. It's owned by the people. And every political party that has been accepted by ZEC, we have a role to take what they bring to us. So manifesto, they actually have a program called the Manifesto, where we invite the political parties to come and convince the people, the electorate, to vote for them. All we do is to offer our platforms, our 6 radio stations, and our TV stations. That's it for them. Yes.
Mr. Chikai, thank you so much for your time, and I'm sure we'll be engaging you further as the electoral process has begun. The ball is only rolling, and we look forward to the process running smoothly, especially as the public broadcaster meets its mandate.
Thank you, Farai. Maybe just some clarification before. We're saying the courts opened at 8. Yes, they were opened by 8, but the process, the nomination process, started at 10. It would be ending at 4. So 8 is normal business. You start, but nomination process 10 a.m. to 4 p.m.
That's it. Thank you so much, Mr. Chikai.
You're welcome, Farai.
Now, of course, I will be giving you more updates during the course of our programming here.